In today's episode, we're going to be looking at a
sacrifice
Paladin.
Can I at least get a
I've been messing with a bunch of different variations of the sacrifice Pally, and I think this is my particular favorite one to use. And it's also another excuse to use Breath of the Dying again and enjoy the beautiful kaleidoscope of poison that flies everywhere. So I've tried Breath of the Dying, I've tried Grief, I've tried Last Wish, and I've come to the conclusion I like a two-hander on this build. And then on top of that, since you have shit res with a two-hander, we're throwing on Kira's Guardian and then throwing on a Wisp Projector with that, so now our reses aren't god-awful. On top of that, we got Metal Grid for the amulet. I could probably put something different, but I do like having that extra attack rating. As you can see, it's a single target build. Really just an elite sniper. You just go and take out the one enemy that actually has the possibility of dropping anything useful. And then I can like use my redemption aura to keep me alive since it's maxed out, since it's a synergy. You know, some would say it's worth the extra 2,000 or 3,000 damage from Fortitude, but I don't think the lack of mobility is worth it. One benefit to this over a one-hander is that you have a lot better reach. Tried it with G-Face, I tried it with Flickering Flame in order to try to keep my mercenary alive better, but it just seems like those aren't really worth it, especially if you're doing the two-hand variant. And considering Deadly Strike, for whatever reason, maybe in the past Deadly Strike probably would have gotten you killed from sacrifice. With the 1% damage, if you're hitting for like 40,000 damage or something, you could probably one-shot yourself. But at the same time, I don't know, I'll show a little bit of gameplay with the two-handed Breath of the Dying. I'll show a little bit of gameplay with Grief. It's like even with Haas, with the extra chance to hit the enemy, it still swings and misses a godly amount to the point where you need like 200 plus dexterity to even hit somewhat consistently, and it's still gonna feel like you're swinging and missing a shit ton. So we could switch a couple things out. It's not gonna really be any faster of a build compared to this. If I use a one-hander though, that's the problem. I'll switch to Grief and then I'll show E-Botted, which does like 12k damage with the one-hander. So it's a good bit more damage, and considering the way that this character attacks and everything, it's probably better to go with the two-hander aside from safety. Oh, I wanted to show you all the other stuff, but we don't have town portals, unfortunately. I mean, you do get a little bit of safety from the massive amount of life leech that you get off of this, off of the E-Botted Warpike, but at the same time, you do get more safety with a sword and shield or an axe and a shield. Personally, for the sake of like the satisfaction of playing the build, I think E-Botted's the best way to go, whether it's an axe or like a Warpike or a Thunder Maul or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, like, look at this, like Zeal Paladin would have cut through all of these already. Here's my least favorite thing about it though. Watch this Bale fight. Watch how much swinging and missing goes on. Watch just how much. This is why people play casters instead of melee characters, because even with like the godliest gear in the game, unless you're like an elemental melee character, you're not really doing shit. I would be killing him faster if I had G-Face on, but at the same time, you still are, you know, just from crushing blow, but you do so much swinging and missing. And then look, I'm not leeching very much against him because there's way less drain efficiency against the bosses. So I mean, just, you know, I should have been a hammered in. Yeah. And look how much, even if you have a shield and stuff, a lot of these Bale attacks just knock you back like that. Since you're not like a Zealer, like chaining your attacks together constantly, you just get constantly knocked back, which I just think is incredibly annoying. Because casters that doesn't do shit to casters. They can be frozen. They don't have to worry about getting knocked back. None of that. So look, 3k to 11k damage. So we could hit for some good damage when that, whatchamacallit's active. When that amp damage is going on. So I mean, I guess, you know, if you want safety, something like this, you could even go with the Phoenix Shield and have up to plus 360 enhanced damage on top of things, which would be like having another Fortitude on here. Look, Fortitude really doesn't add that much damage. And then if I had Phoenix, we would get more, but, you know, that's considering we have Kira's Guardian on right now. We didn't have Kira's on right now. Our reses are gonna be dog shit. We need either a really good Paladin shield base. We need Kira's. I think Kira's is more so for when I'm using it with the two-hander. Kira's is better with the two-hander, and then if we want to do, you know, a one-hander, we want to do E-botted, we want to maybe do Grief, then I think, you know, G-Face or something. Unfortunately, we can't even get Deadly Strike with this though, so it's good against like trash mobs, but you don't even want to spend time on those, and then it's good on like elites, like right here. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I could have just been a hammered in and taken all of them out and had a higher chance of getting like a rune or something. So I mean, it's good at taking those out, but it's kind of shitty against the bosses because of all that knockback you get, and also all of that swinging and missing that you do. Essentially, the character screen's lying right here though. Grief is really doing around 10k damage. It's like 7k plus this, so it's like 8,300 to like 10,000 damage essentially. Grief is like, if it's a perfect Grief, it's like 7,000 damage or something like that, depending on the skill. I think the biggest lack that it has is AoE. So arguably Grief is the best, but then you could say E-botted just because it's more satisfying to take enemies out and see the Poison Nova. Then we also have, you know, you could do a two-hander. There's lots of different options. It just really lacks AoE, so maybe, you know, Dragon, Dream, and then something, you know, but then you have to keep in mind sacrifices a 60-point build to max it out, so maybe, you know, then you're gonna need another 40 points for whatever element that you go into with your aura gear. So I mean, that's literally a 100-point build right there. Then you don't really have much more options. So I think it's better, like, if you want to do this, to go full physical, but at the same time it is a little bit underwhelming. Because of it being underwhelming, I'd rather use E-botted and have the satisfaction of seeing the Poison Novas compared to Grief, because it's not that big of a difference. You still lack AoE. You still are like a Vengeance Paladin that's a little bit worse against bosses. You know, I guess the only upside is that, you know, bosses don't necessarily have super high physical resistance. So I mean, there's an argument that the difference in damage between two-hander and one-hander isn't really worth going with a two-hander as well. But if you like the big numbers, then go two-hander. But I mean, look at this, like a Zeal Paladin just smears its Pampers all over the face of this build. Here's all the skill tree and everything. Maxed out Sacrifice and all of its synergies, Redemption and Fanaticism. We one-pointed Holy Shield. We went and put a couple into Conviction because I wanted to try it with max Fanaticism and max Concentration to see which one was better. I think Fanaticism is, because it gives all that AR and the IAS. And then I wanted to see it with conviction just to see if we could kind of nullify some of that swinging and missing. Maybe we could actually do that by having like a battle cry barbarian, Act 5 bash mercenary. You know, maybe his shit will make the enemy be able to get hit more often. And then use fanaticism with that, or conviction. Conviction, some setups, it just swings too slow. So, but I mean, I guess it would be fine to swing slower and not swing and miss so much. So, I don't know. Then we got all these. I put 1 point into these and then 2 into this because I wanted to test it with aura gear, but then I realized that was a waste of points because it's not going to do shit with the auras with that little of a synergy. So this is just one of those things, like, I feel like Sacrifice, maybe they could fix it by making the synergies, like making it maybe only have one synergy, and instead of having to max Fanaticism or having to max Redemption, maybe put all of it to where, you know, you get 20 damage per level on Fanaticism instead of the 15 on Redemption, and then you could just 1 point Redemption, go max Fanat, and have an extra 20 points to spare. That could maybe alleviate some of the issues of this build. Here's all the gear though. Just gonna mouse over it. It's not, there's a lot of different things you could go with High Lords. The Deadly Strike not working with this is really a huge downside though. You could go with a bunch of different options. You could go for some more IAS. I particularly like Metal Grid just to hit more often because I just hate swinging and missing. CTA and Spirit on swap. And then on the Mercenary, we got Brand, Treachery, and Steel Skull. Probably would have been better off with Vamp Gaze, but at the same time, I'm not really standing in the middle of packs too much with this build because I'm only going for the elites and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm probably going to respec back into a Hammerden. Hope everybody enjoyed though. Have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you so much.
Sacrificed so much of my life. Can I at least get laid?